The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericavariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Crime Prevention 101. We're so happy you joined us this week. Over the next hour, you'll learn the tips, tricks, and vital information that will help you keep yourself confident and safe. Now, here's your host, Susan Bartelstone.
Hey there. How are you this lovely Thursday evening? I'm Susan Bartelstone. This is Crime Prevention 101. And what a crazy week and a crazy day I had. Oh, my God. You know, I'm here in New York City. That's where I broadcast from. And we here in the Big Apple are still nervous about the thwarted terrorist attack that took place, at the beginning of the month. And I was in Times Square this past weekend, and oh, my God, soldiers with guns, police everywhere. It's just unbelievable. And they actually closed down Times Square twice, once for a carton of bottled water that somebody left. I mean, we're just, if you see something, say something. Well, everybody's been saying something. And then today, our illustrious president came to town, and they blocked off the street where my car was, and I couldn't get to it. So it's still sitting in the garage there. Oh, anyway, just thought I'd tell you. But anyway, tonight's show, the topic for the show, let's get serious here. The topic of the show is bullying. And we're also going to be talking about this terrible case that's been featured in the news for the past several weeks, the suicide of a beautiful, vibrant 15-year-old named Phoebe Prince, who took her life because of months of unrelenting verbal abuse and physical threats and cyberbullying that she received from a group of her high school classmates in a small town in South Hadley, Massachusetts. And we're going to start off talking about the legal and criminal ramifications of bullying, suing the school system, charging the bullies criminally with former prosecutor Robin Sachs and former cop Stacy Dietrich, I think I pronounced that right, who together call themselves Justice Interrupted. And then I'll be speaking with bullying expert Barbara Coloroso, who is the consultant that was brought into the South Hadley School District to talk to them about bullying, and who has said that the high school ignored her recommendations. So I think that's going to be a very interesting guest. And we're going to start off the show as usual with our Crime Prevention 101 True Crime Report. And this week I'll be featuring Stephen Singular, author of 20 nonfiction books, including 2 New York Times bestsellers. And he is a regular contributor to one of my favorite blogs, and it's called In Cold Blog. And we're going to be talking about the case of John E. Robinson from suburban Kansas City, the first known serial killer in the history of the Internet. So, Stephen, welcome to Crime Prevention 101.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
What an interesting case we're going to talk about. And you actually co-wrote a book about this case, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I co-wrote a book with John Douglas. John Douglas helped found the Behavioral Science Unit in Quantico, Virginia for the FBI. It was really probably the first concerted effort anywhere to learn more about serial killers, how they functioned, how they picked victims. And the Douglas character was also a little bit, the character of Scott Glenn in The Silence of the Lambs was based a bit on Douglas, so that gives him a little bit more of an aura there. If you remember the Scott Glenn, he was the boss of the heroine in the movie.
Oh, okay, the good guy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The good guy.
So tell me about this guy,
Well, John E. Robinson of suburban Kansas City was a career criminal. He started out actually stealing money and even stealing stamps, I recall, at one point. But he gradually evolved through his criminal career from stealing to murder and became a serial killer before the Internet was popular back in the 80s. Women started disappearing around that from the Kansas City area. He was sent to prison in the 80s, I believe, for one of the theft charges, and he served quite a bit of time there. And lo and behold, when he was in prison, they taught him how to use computers, and he was actually quite good at it. Like many serial killers, he was really very bright and very creative in certain ways. And so he came out of prison very much into computers, quite sophisticated in them, and then he sort of transitioned from being a serial killer in the regular world, of which he had been before, even though he hadn't been caught for that or prosecuted, and he took those same stalking, predatory impulses and he transferred them onto the Internet right as it was becoming popular in the 90s.
Very enterprising. We taught him how to do it, and then he just took the bull and ran with it, huh?
Yeah, everything he had used before about, a false identity, luring women, seducing them, making promises to them. In the past, he might have gone, he might have met one or two women somewhere, or gone into a bar or something like that. With the Internet, he had this huge victim pool sitting out there. And really, people were naive about it back then. I mean, they still may be somewhat naive, but I don't think most realized how potentially dangerous the Internet could be, how many lies people told, what kind of scams they were running. And this book, which is called Anyone You Want Me to Be, a true story of sex and death on the Internet, is really sort of the ultimate cautionary tale for what can happen when you go online.
Now, how many women do they know that he killed?
I believe that there were, I think there were 10. And that's known, as we said, 8 to 10. And not everything was revealed. I mean, he went to trial in 2002, and he was convicted, but certain bodies were never found, certain questions were never answered. So it's one of those situations where we don't know the absolute truth of that, but we do know that he killed a number of women, both, before the Internet and then after. And it was always the promise of money. It was always the promise of a better life. He was very good at finding his victims and identifying them and using techniques to lure them to come to Kansas City in person. And then once they were there, they were essentially trapped.
And the title, Anyone You Want Me to Be, I guess that refers to some of the cons that he pulled on these people.
He was anyone. I mean, he had a variety of aliases which he would use. He had some property that he owned south of Kansas City, and he actually killed at least one woman down there, and he hid the bodies down there. But he would go out, set up a camera out in the countryside. I mean, what's more innocent looking than the Kansas countryside? Snap a picture of himself in a cowboy hat, and then send it out. And he was a gentleman farmer of, with money, who was just looking to help people and do the right thing. And this picture went out, all over the Internet. He was involved with a number of women who did decide not actually to come to Kansas, and their lives were spared. So it was an extraordinary story of just what a tool the Internet is for doing this kind of criminal activity.
How frightening. How did they finally catch this guy?
Well, there were one of the women who was killed, her mother and one of her sisters finally just kind of figured out that he was involved in this. Their sister and daughter had gone from Michigan out to Kansas City, and what he would do with women is he would always have them sign pieces of paper. He would buy very nice stationery, and he could just talk them into signing it. Then after he would kill them, he would write letters over their names and keep sending them out to people, so they would think that the victim was actually alive, and people bought into this, and it went on for years. He would also do it in such a way that he could continue collecting money from certain women, either government money or some forms like that. And these women, I mean, it's really a sad and awful story, but they bought into this and they signed the sheets. And this mother and daughter finally figured out that these were being forged, and they went to the police and they started doing surveillance, and ultimately, he was trapped in that and he was caught. But it's a horrifying story. I'm leaving out some of the worst details, but for those who want to read the book, it's not a graphic book at all. It's a book that's intended to be as I said, a cautionary tale for anybody who thinks that the Internet cannot be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Now, please tell me that he's been executed and he's...
No,
no.
He wasn't executed for a variety of reasons. It wasn't a capital case, and so he's in life in prison in El Dorado, Kansas, I believe. So, but I mean, he's out. He's definitely out of the picture. So,
all right. Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
So now, what's coming up next for you? I'm sure you're not going to stop at 20.
Well, I've written about half of the books are about true crime situations. The others are business and sports biographies and things like that. The newest book, which will be out at the end of the year, is about the murder of Dr. George Tiller, the nation's most controversial abortion doctor, who was gunned down in his church last May by a man named Scott Roeder. Roeder was convicted of this crime in January of this year. So it's a very, controversial, dramatic story about the two sides, really, of the abortion issue.
This is a really hot topic too, because this killer is totally unrepentant about it.
Yeah,
doesn't appear to see any irony in that he killed this man because he felt this man was killing babies.
No, he was very proud of it. I mean, he acknowledged it. I went to the jail and visited him several times after the murder, and he was quite proud of it and had no difficulty basically talking about it. And he sacrificed his life for it, the way terrorists do.
Did you visit John Robinson also?
I tried to once. Crime is always surrounded by great irony and complexity, and I got into the jail to visit him. He had a daughter who was in her 20s, and here he was killing women in their 20s, basically luring them in and killing them. And just as I was sitting down to talk with him, his own daughter, who was in her 20s, showed up and ran me off and thought I was a terrible person and all of that. So, even though he killed these women, he was still her father, and she was still loyal to him. So, the world is a very strange place.
Yeah, and like I'd really want to acknowledge that as my father. Oh,
right,
boy.
Right. I mean, it was disturbing. I mean, it was one of the many disturbing things about dealing with this. But I do think there's education that comes from projects like this and from books like this, and you just need to beware.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Stephen, I know you've got a website.
Yes, it's Stephen, Stephen, singular, Singular. That's all one word, StephenSingular.com. And the books are there and descriptions of them and media appearances and all of that. So it's
if you want to read his blog posts, go to incoldblogger.blogspot.com, right?
That's right, incoldblog.com, or the way you read it. I don't blog on the website as much as on there.
Okay. Well, Steve, thanks so much for being with me today. I want you to come back when the next book is ready to come out. We'll talk about that one.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
Okay, dokie.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
And this is Crime Prevention 101, the radio show with an optimistic perspective on a sober subject. When we come back, I'll be talking about the legal and criminal aspects of bullying, and especially the Phoebe Prince case.
News. Opinion. Your voice counts. Call toll-free 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. VoiceAmerica.com.
After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.crimeprevention101.com for more information.
Do you need directions to solid financial future? If so, the Money Answer Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with a roadmap to making smart money decisions in every area of your personal finances. Join Jordan every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern for the Money Answer Show on the Voice America Business Channel. Learn how and where to get the best deals on mortgages, cars, and insurance. Find out the best ways to save for college and retirement. Get out of debt, improve your credit rating, and save on your taxes. The Money Answer Show with Jordan Goodman will provide you with great tips on investment opportunities in real estate, stocks, annuities, and other investment vehicles. That's the Money Answer Show with Jordan Goodman on the Voice America Business Channel every Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
The Marsh Engel Show. Join the movement to empower yourself with the essentials of feminine power and success, and learn how women around the world are becoming more inspired, more influential, and absolutely amazing. Each week, Marsh sits down for an engaging conversation with women who are boldly committed to living their most amazing life. You'll discover ways to step into your greatest vision, deepen your relationships, and unleash your real creative brilliance. Get ready. It's time to jump into the conversation. That's Monday afternoons at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern for the Marsh Engel Show on the Voice America Business Network.
Have questions about wind power? Listen for the TLG Wind Power Hour with Terry from TLG Wind Power Products. He'll cover the ins and outs of wind energy with you, whether you're a do-it-yourselfer or want a ready-made product. Let Terry give you the know-how and understanding of making wind energy work for you. Terry will share decades of hands-on experience so that you don't have to learn about wind power the hard way. The TLG Wind Power Hour, live every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Time on the Green Talk Network.
Streaming live. The leader in Internet talk radio. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. Susan would like to remind you that no absolutes exist in a crime scenario, and no advice can possibly address every variable. Each situation should be evaluated individually and responded to in a way you instinctively judge best. It's Susan's aim on this show to provide you with the information and options that will help you make that instinctive assessment quickly and safely. And if you're already a survivor of the kind of crime we're talking about on the show today, or any other crime for that matter, please remember that there are no right or wrong responses in a criminal encounter, and nothing that happened to you was your fault. Even if you think you used bad judgment in a situation and left yourself vulnerable, that's never an excuse for a crime or for violence. So please, call yourself a survivor, not a victim, and understand that with time, distance, and the proper professional help, you can put what happened into perspective and get on with your life. If you'd like to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, send your comments to solutions@fightsafe.com, and Susan may address some of them on future shows. That email address again, solutions@fightsafe.com. Now, back to Crime Prevention 101.
Hi, Susan Bartelstone here. And you know what? There's plenty of show left to tune in for, so please start tweeting about us. And don't forget that you can follow me on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook. I've got almost 4,000 friends now, and I'd love to add you. So come join the party, and let's go and meet our next guest. I have two people coming on with me now. The first one, Stacy Dietrich, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
It's Dietrich. You were close, though. Good for you.
Okay. All right. Stacy Dietrich is an award-winning former police officer and a media consultant, and a co-host of Justice Interrupted, which is a great website and one of my favorite radio shows. She's appeared on Fox, The O'Reilly Factor, CNN, True Hollywood Crime, to name a few. And she's also the author of a very successful detective series, and she's got a true crime book called Murder Behind the Badge, which I'm really going to talk to her about. And also we have with us is Robin Sachs, a former Los Angeles County Deputy District Attorney who specialized in cases involving sex crimes against children, and for more than 15 years prosecuted some of the most despicable defendants who committed the most heinous crimes. She's an in-house legal analyst for NBC News, a regular guest commentator on shows like Larry King Live and The Today Show, and together Robin and Stacy formed Justice Interrupted, which utilizes the power of the media to advocate for crime victims and bring attention to miscarriages of justice. They're on Blog Talk Radio. You got to check them out, justiceinterrupted.com. And welcome, Robin and Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. It's great to be here.
It is just such a pleasure. So now I want to talk about the case that's making a lot of headlines, the Phoebe Prince case, and particularly I thought we could talk about the legal and criminal ramifications of bullying and what kind of remedies can be sought. So, Robin, let's start with you. I mean, how would you? What's your take on this case, and how would you define it in the context of bullying?
Well, I mean, first of all, the thing that's so unbelievable is really how rampant bullying is all across the line and all across the board. Not just, the old schoolhouse bullying that we all are aware of the fights that happen on a schoolyard, and no longer just internet bullying. The fights that happen, or the bullying and the stalking that happen online. But now we even are seeing, teachers acting out of control and being bullies of sorts. That was a case that just broke today in the news, which is that where the teacher, the Davis teacher, beat the pulp out of the 13-year-old boy that was caught on the cell phone in Houston. And so it's really outrageous that an adult can't even act like an adult. It's no wonder our children aren't respecting each other.
Oh, it's definitely out of control, and I just want to. I mean, I find it so hard to believe that this can go on for months and months and months and months without. And I think her family complained many times to the school, and they actually implicated 9 teenagers for tormenting her, and these teenagers are facing criminal charges, including criminal harassment, stalking, and statutory rape. Are these charges going to stick? I mean, can they really? Does bullying have that kind of, penalty attached to it?
Well, I mean, yes, and it's not only can it should. If you can't trust the criminal process to keep people behavior in line, what can you trust? So, yes, I mean, but we have to go beyond, just being able to discipline children within the realm of school and law. We need the cooperation of parents, educators, in our community to recognize that the behaviors that are going on and the utilization of bullying out there is just out of control.
Do all the states, I don't know if either of you know this, does every state have an anti-bullying law? I mean, or laws?
Yes.
All 50 of them?
Every state has some sort of anti-harassment or anti-bullying in one form or another.
Right. It's not necessarily the word bullying, but a lot of these laws can be applied. And one of the charges in the Phoebe Prince case was the stalking. It's a repeated pattern of abuse or harassment. And people think of stalking as, the jilted lover or the ex-husband or whatnot. But stalking actually covers a broad variety of cases. So I thought it was very, what's the word? A good
creative,
job there that they did
maybe. but I wasn't sure whether that they could really make that stick.
Oh, I don't see why not. You're talking about certain elements of the crime, and if it meets those elements, regardless of the circumstances, that's all they have to prove. And I think Robin can, jump in here for that.
All right. And what about the statutory rape charges? I think, is it going to be easy to prove that since the victim is dead? And I think, actually, we just get a message. I think, Stacy, you're still with me?
Yes.
Okay, I think we dropped Robin.
Oh, okay.
They're trying to get her back. The wonders of technology.
Oh, believe it. You should hear the obscenities after our show each week because of the technicalities. But yes, the statutory rape, I think, is this particular prosecutor really hammering down and sending a message. Whether it sticks, most states are really kind of shying away from these Romeo and Juliet sex crime laws. And I don't know how much, quite frankly, longer statutory rape, when there's consent involved, is really going to be around. But I think at this point, quite frankly, everyone failed there. And now they're backtracking and going almost overboard to make up for it, which is fine. But the charges that were brought forth on all of these kids should have been brought forth prior to her death. And I think her parents, being immigrants, they weren't familiar with how to go about dealing with something like this. I mean, it was just relentless. And, they did what they thought they were supposed to do. They contacted the school. The school acknowledged it was going on. They failed to act. At that point, the next step should have been to call law enforcement, demand an investigation, or file a police report and request possible criminal charges, if not restraining orders getting involved. But I just don't think that Phoebe Prince's parents were quite aware of how the system worked here.
Well, they're not alone either, because most of these schools don't appear to handle this very well. Either they go way overboard. You look at somebody cross-eyed and they strip search you and send you home.
Sure.
Or they just don't take action at all.
No, and I have parents call me, and I actually use this piece of advice quite a bit because I thought it was phenomenal. A woman I know in my own children's school district, her daughter went through years and years of relentless bullying, and it was really bad. The school wouldn't act. Finally, she stopped sending her to school. She called the school, and she said, here's what's going to happen. She's not attending school until you deal with this problem. And I fully expect for her work to be ready at the end of each week for me to pick up so she doesn't fall behind. And shockingly, by law you have to attend school, and shockingly the school was like, okay, and sat there and got this girl's schoolwork together instead of dealing with the problem. And when it gets to that point, and in Phoebe's case, if this were ever to be my daughter, I would do the same thing. She would just stop going to school. And, of course, at that point, law enforcement would get brought in.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting take on it, because that's one of the things that the parents didn't think of doing. And I kind of wish that they had.
Right.
Because I don't think legislation, is going to be able to solve this.
No,
problem.
because, your children, and I went through a mild case of it with my daughter when she was in the 5th grade, believe it or not. And one of the things I had to, unfortunately, explain to the principal was, my child is in your care for 6 hours a day. It is your responsibility to see that she's educated and safe. And you're failing in 50% of that. So you better do something about it, and they're just not getting that. They'd rather turn a blind eye. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the term, how girls are, and how boys are. And I mean, this gets really bad. We had a case here where a couple of teenage girls literally plotted the murder of another teenage girl they had been bullying. I mean, down to where they were going to dump her body. And these girls are now in prison until they're 25 years old.
I think we could go on for another half an hour on this, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to end it here. But you know what? We'll talk about this again.
Definitely.
I'm going to have you back. I'm going to thank Robin. We were never able to get her back on, but I'm so glad that you came on with me.
Thanks for having us.
If you want information about Stacy, Stacy Dittrich, DITTRICH, Dittrich.com, RobinSachs.com, and JusticeInterrupted.com. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what else could have been done at South Hadley High School to stop that bullying. So stay tuned.
Thanks, Susan.
My pleasure.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. That's it. VoiceAmerica.com.
Dialogue is the single most powerful leadership tool we have to make a difference in the world. Leading Conversations with host Cheryl Esposito creates a place for that dialogue. Tune into the Voice America Business Channel every Friday as Cheryl hosts new conversations among leaders from around the world in business, government, art, economics, and social change. We'll explore big ideas and everyday actions and learn how their own leadership has led them to discover a newfound sense of possibility in the world. Leading Conversations with Cheryl Esposito, bringing big thinkers together in conversations that make a difference right here on the Voice America Business Channel every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime, How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.crimeprevention101.com for more information.
Are you ready to go green? You've asked, and we've heard you. Voice America presents the Green Talk Network. Environmental topics are at the forefront of our society, and the Green Talk Network is here to keep you up to date on the latest trends and new innovations for the eco-conscious lifestyle. We'll help promote a variety of ideas on the environment, from global warming issues to how you can become more eco-friendly in your daily activities. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. Visit the Green Talk Network page on voiceamerica.com and tune in to help spread the green.
This ain't your mama's brain and health show. Tune in and get ready for entertainment and information about your mind and body that will really change your life. Primal Body, Primal Mind Radio is a sane departure from conventional thinking about diet, health, and the brain. Host Nora Gedgaudas will also combine humor and science to illuminate the mind and open your eyes to the principles of neurofeedback and diet, which can help you and your family live a better life. Primal Body, Primal Mind Radio airs live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel. The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now, back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
And welcome back, and thanks so much for tuning in and joining me tonight. Now let's meet our bullying expert, Barbara Coloroso, and her organization is called Kids Are Worth It, and she is an internationally recognized lecturer in the areas of parenting, teaching, school discipline. She's one of the foremost experts on nonviolent conflict resolution and bullying, and I'm talking about in the world. And she's the author of the highly acclaimed book, The Bully, the Bullied, and the Bystander, which I am getting through because she sent it to me, and it's an amazing book. And she's also the expert that the South Hadley, Massachusetts School District brought in to help them deal with their bullying problems. And that's the school district that suicide victim Phoebe Prince attended. So she was right there. And she says that the high school didn't follow her recommendations. So we're going to talk about this and what schools can do to prevent other suicides and bullying. So welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Susan.
Well, first of all, just so we really know exactly what we're talking about, please define bullying for us from your perspective.
I think that's probably the most important thing, because as they go into school systems, one of the biggest problems is they tend to handle bullying and conflict as if they were one and the same, and they're not. Conflict's very normal, natural, and necessary, and our job as wise and caring adults is to teach our young people how to handle those conflicts nonviolently. But bullying is a whole different creature. Bullying is a conscious, willful, deliberate, hostile activity that's intended to harm another person, where you often get pleasure from that person's pain. It can be verbal, physical, or relational, often has as its overlay race or religion or gender or physical or mental ability, and includes cyberbullying and all forms of hazing. So, in a nutshell, conflict you resolve, bullying you stop. Conflict's normal and natural and necessary. Bullying's none of those.
And I think that some of the problems, and I may be jumping ahead a little because I'm going to ask you about this, I think some of the problem is that we tend, now we're getting so crazy with this bullying that we tend to swat a fly with a cannon. Any conflict that comes up, it's bullying.
Yeah.
Let me save that. Let's go back a little bit. I don't want to jump ahead. Is there a profile for who these bullies are? Because everyone is kind of surprised about these bullies in the South Hadley school district here.
The one thing all targeted kids have in common, and there's a common thread for targeted kids, is that somebody targeted them. All bullies, you cannot tell them by how they look. It's how they act. So any kid, people are often suspecting that it's the big kid who's going to beat other kids up is the stereotypical bully. However, the high-status social bullies are those who have a sense of entitlement, a liberty to exclude, and an intolerance toward differences, who are often seen as the good kids in school who can just as easily be mean and cruel as not.
Mm-hmm. And these kids here in this school, they were athletes. They were the girlfriends of the athletes. I mean, these
students,
were
and the girls actually were athletes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they were had actually a bit of a sense of entitlement, and they felt very comfortable excluding other people, and they had an intolerance toward differences. Phoebe was Irish. She was an immigrant. Well, she had come to study for the year there, and so they decided that she's different enough. I mean, you can be targeted because you're new. We always look for why would a kid be targeted. There are some kids who are more vulnerable, but you can be targeted because you're new, short, tall, developed early, developed late, race, religion, your looks. Again, the one thing they all have in common is somebody targeted them, and the kid who targeted them, you can often tell a targeted kid after they've been repeatedly targeted by how they look. You can't do that with a bully. It's how they act.
Mm-hmm. And there was a kind of maybe a misconception, you'd say, that the bullies had been abused at home, or they had been bullied at home, or they had been neglected. And this doesn't appear to be the case, at least in this particular situation.
And in most cases, it's not. There are kids who, again, just as kids are more vulnerable, some for being targeted, there are some kids more vulnerable to bullying, especially those. And by the way, typically, if a kid has been bullied at home, they may not necessarily bully. They may end up being more vulnerable to being targeted. So, but if you've been hurt and abused, if you've learned it from somebody. You have to learn to bully, by the way. Nobody who has anybody who's listening here who has more than one kid knows you never have to teach them how to engage in a conflict, how to deal with it nonviolently, yes, but kids get in conflicts. It's very normal. However, you have to be taught that it's okay to put somebody outside your circle of caring. You have to be taught that it's all right to make somebody less than you, to make that person, not as Martin Buber said, I and thou, I'm unique and you're unique, but we have a common humanity. In bullying, I'm the I and you're the it. And that's why verbal bullying is so dangerous, because what it does is it makes that person an it. Think of the gross sexual terms, the gross racial terms that make another person into an it. And once they're an it, I can do anything to them and not feel any shame or compassion. People say, how could you stick a kid's head in the toilet? How could you call this kid these ugly names? How could you go online and deface her memorial? How could you do this? Well, when you see somebody as an it, it's not hard to do at all.
It kind of befuddles me, I have to tell you, but
because you wouldn't do it.
Yes,
it would not be a part of your nature.
Yeah.
You notice there are three kids in this tragedy. There's the bully, the bullied, and the bystander.
Mm-hmm.
Chances of your child being targeted or being a bully is far less than getting swept up in what I call the trap of comradeship of going along with the bully. For instance, you say, I would not do that. Well, the high-status social bully says in middle school, I don't like the new girl. And if you want to be in my group, then you won't eat lunch with her either. There are a lot of young girls who want to fit in with the popular crowd, who will cheer the bully on, who will sit with the bully. Some will actually be afraid that if they don't sit with the bully, then they'll be next. I want that fourth character. I want that kid who will stand up and speak out and say, that's mean, that's cruel, and have the courage, and by the way, it takes courage, to go sit next to the new girl, because that girl who had that courage will probably get something like, oh, Miss Goody Two-Shoes, or you're next. And I want your son, when his friends say, look at that kid over there, different skin color or religion or gender or physical or mental ability, let's mess him up. I want your son to be the one to say, no. When the burden's heavy, when his friends say, what are you, chicken? What are you, just like him?
Mm-hmm.
See, my goal is to raise kids who will break that cycle. But we also know that while it's still going on, we have an obligation as adults to stop it.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, because if people didn't stand by and let the bullies do it, that's another way that it could be stopped on the grassroots level, and I think that's a very good point.
Well, I want young people to know you can stop it if you have enough courage to stand up and say, back off, leave them alone, or even to invite the new girl to lunch yourself, or to invite her over to your home for a play date or whatever. That takes courage. But there is another way, and I always tell kids to tell a deeply caring adult in the school that you think will care. And that's why most of my work is in educating adults. How do you deal with it when a child comes to you and says they've been targeted, or somebody reports to you that the other kids are doing this to the other kid, and not view it as tattling, but truly telling and reporting.
This is an important point, Barbara, because you have said that, and then you went in there and you did briefings for the school district. And you said that when we talked, you said that the lower schools,
the primary and the elementary and the middle, they break it into three sections in the lower grades. All three of them, when they did the meeting after the young girl had killed herself, Phoebe Prince, they had a big meeting. Of course, it was packed. But the district got up and talked about their different policies and procedures. The three lower groups actually did the 3 Ps I talked about: strong anti-bullying policy, procedures in place that deal effectively with the bully, effectively with the target, keeping him or her safe, and effectively with any kid who joined in and participated in the bullying. Then programs in place that help create a more deeply caring environment where bullying isn't sustained and bullying is not tolerated. Because once kids believe they can act with impunity with verbal bullying or relational bullying, that shunning, rumor, gossip, and exclusion, then they're more comfortable to move to the physical bullying because they've done it with impunity. Nobody has stopped them. That's why it's so critical to stop it when somebody calls somebody a gross name, or when somebody says, we're not going to have lunch with that girl. We need to be ready to step in before it escalates. Because I said, and I've said it many times, and I'll say it publicly, and I've said it to the school system, that had those 3 Ps been in place in the high school, and someone would have stopped it. First of all, it would be up to the bullies to stop it, but if they didn't, that some adult in that building would have stopped it, I will guarantee you, one, Phoebe probably would not have killed herself, although suicide is very complicated, but at least I can guarantee you the last 3 months of her life wouldn't have been so hellish, and a group of kids would not now have criminal charges against them, because it did not start as criminal bullying. It escalated to it, and that's what happens when you allow it to go on with impunity.
And there was reports that teachers knew about it and did nothing, and the superintendent and the principal knew about it.
Well, and I don't want to pick on South Hadley, because I get called all the time about that same situation. There's one in Georgia right now where a kid killed himself, and the school district's response was, well, it's up to parents to keep kids from killing themselves. And forget that the kid had been relentlessly targeted for 4 years in the school, and nothing was done. And yet it was known by the administration and the teachers. So it is not unique to South Hadley. It is a problem in every community, in every school, that all of us have to face up to. Because we ignored it at our kids' peril.
Yeah, this is going to be a mess for that school district, and I think that they're facing a lot of lawsuits behind this.
Well, and the sad thing is, in the end, we have a dead child and a group of young people who were allowed to continue to the point of criminal behavior. And other kids at school have to live with the fact, some of them, that they did not intervene when they saw it, and others that there is a tremendous loss with a classmate gone.
Mm-hmm.
So it affects all of us. Mm-hmm. And so what I want to do is stop it from happening, and to say, no more, not here, never. As an educator, I am an educator. If I heard a child or saw a child ostracize a child or call them a gross name, I'm on their case. I'm all over them right away, and holding them accountable for what they've done, and also making sure that the targeted child feels very safe. Because I'll guarantee them this is safe harbor for everyone. I tell kids, you do not have to like every kid in this school, but you must honor their humanity. You cannot rip them apart verbally, physically, or relationally.
That's right. Well, Barbara, that is fantastic insight and really good advice. KidsAreWorthIt.com. The Bully, the Bullied, and the Bystander. It's a great book if you're in the school system, if you're a parent. You're going to want to get this. Maybe you'll come back and talk to me. Come back and talk to me another time, because I'm sure this issue is not going to go away.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate the dialogue.
It's my pleasure. And now, my wonderful audience, stay right where you are, because there's more Crime Prevention 101 coming right up.
Talk, talk, talk. That's all we do is talk. If you'd like to talk, call us toll-free right now at 1-866-472-5787. 1-866-472-5787. That's it. VoiceAmerica.com.
After more than 17 years' experience teaching safety skills to thousands of women and men, crime prevention and personal safety expert Susan Bartelstone concluded that by thinking and responding quickly, ideally within 20 seconds, potentially violent criminal encounters can be prevented. Using techniques from many different disciplines and illustrated by 60 real-life examples and success stories, Susan shows how it's done in her new book, Think Fast and Prevent a Violent Crime: How to Respond to Danger in 20 Seconds or Less. Check out www.crimeprevention101.com for more information.
Are you a real sports fan? Get ready to talk football and anything else sports with Kwame Lassiter, formerly with the Arizona Cardinals, San Diego Chargers, and St. Louis Rams. Kwame's got the experience, so he's prepared to talk sports with you every week on Kwame Lassiter's Sports Talk. It's on the Voice America Sports Network every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, noon Eastern Time. Get ready for unpredictable fun and sometimes a sarcastic look at the world of sports. That's Kwame Lassiter's Sports Talk on the Voice America Sports Network.
Listen up.
Conceive Magazine is now on the air, live and on demand on the Voice America Health and Wellness Channel every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Hosted by Kim Hahn, founder of Conceive Magazine. Conceive On Air offers comfort and emotional support to women contemplating starting or expanding their family by consulting noted professional experts and by sharing the insights and experiences of others. Kim wants to share her experiences to educate and empower women. Conceive On Air is the only complete resource destination that inspires and informs future moms about their fertility on the journey to parenthood. Conceive On Air with Kim Hahn, celebrating the creation of families.
Stimulating talk.
Gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 Internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com.
You're listening to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone. We invite you to share your stories, tips, or suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, and Susan will address some of these on future shows. Send your story or idea to solutions@fightsafe.com. That email address again is solutions@fightsafe.com. Now, back to Crime Prevention 101 with Susan Bartelstone.
Hello again. This is Susan Bartelstone, and I want to remind you that Crime Prevention 101 is available on iTunes. You don't even have to be at your computer to listen to all this goodness. And don't forget that we also have a blog site, crimeprevention101.com, where I post links and information about show topics and my wonderful guests. And I'm going to have some bullying tips on there for you and some of Barbara Colaroso's tips that I think are so great. Let's see now, usually at this point in time in the show, we do our Crime Stopper segment, but unfortunately we're gonna, my guest had to cancel at the last minute, so I thought, I would end with a couple of items that I thought were so interesting, and interesting for you. And one of the things that I always tell people, people have asked me and email me for advice, thousands of people, I can't even tell you how many, and a number of times, many times, the question will come to me, my child is being bullied, what should I do? And in addition to all the other things, I always tell the parent, if your kid will do it, put that child into martial arts. Because one of the most important ways that you can keep yourself sane and combat being a good target for a bully is, number one, and this comes, by the way, these are some of Barbara Colaroso's tips. I saw them in her book. Have a strong sense of yourself. Have at least one good friend who's there for you through thick and thin, and be able to successfully get into a group that will accept you. And this is martial arts. There's nothing that gives you back self-esteem and your sense of self-worth. And you've got buddies there, and you've got comrades there. And if your child will take to it, it's an extremely powerful tool for healing and for combating the destructiveness of this bullying, and maybe even preventing suicide, because you got some strength and you're part of a group now. And so it's really something to explore, to look into, and see if the child will take to it. Also, there's something that I want to tell you about, and I'm going to have to get this woman on as a guest. I saw an article about her, and it said, "Woman with no arms or kneecaps is preparing for a black belt." And this is a woman who lives in Peabody, Massachusetts. Her name is Sheila Razuskowitz, looks like. And she's 32 years old. She's a brown belt right now. And she was born with, it's called TAR syndrome, which I guess it means you have no hands, no arms. She's got hands, but no arms. And she's got no kneecaps. And she has worked her way up to taking her black belt test. So she works as an advocate for victims of domestic violence, and she said she has never let her disability stop her. And she drives a car, and it says here she can use nunchucks, she can break boards with her kicks, and she's been training for 3 years. And she is a dedicated martial artist. I really want to get her on the show and let you talk to her. And this is kind of an example of what martial arts can give to you: strength of purpose, determination, sense of self, and I bet you nobody bullies that woman. Very inspiring. And by the way, there's a picture of her at mydailynews.com, and she's also on Fox News if you want to check that out. Well, you know what? That's a wrap for now. Please don't forget that we always love to hear from you. So by all means, go to my host page at voiceamerica.com and post your comments or suggestions. If there's a topic you'd like me to talk about, you can do that. If you'd like to email me privately, it's solutions@fightsafe.com. Please tell your friends about us, Crime Prevention 101, because we're growing and growing and growing, and we're covering all sorts of important issues that you want to hear about. And you know what? You and I will be doing this again next week, same time, when I'll have more stories that demand to be told, more hot crime topics, and of course, lots of tips and resources for you. It'd be a crime not to listen, so stay tuned and stay safe.
We hope you got some useful information and inspiration this week on Crime Prevention 101. Susan Bartelstone invites you to join us again next Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern Time here on Voice America. If you want to learn more about Susan's guest, sign up for her newsletter, or find out about upcoming teleseminars and workshops, go to www.crimeprevention101.com today. Have a great week and a safe week.